So I want to invite just one more couple here, one of the parish. Now, this will take us back 10 years. So Eric and Amanda, please come up and share your story.
Hello. My name is Amanda Grimm. My husband Eric and I are interested in joining Our Lady of the Immaculate Conception. We've been trying to decide on the right parish for about the last year, and we think that Our Lady of the Immaculate Conception is the one we would like to join. We love the vibrant parish life and the focus on true discipleship. My wife AJ wrote this email 10 years ago. We had been, and Father Satish made sure that he read it out to the whole congregation, like he does. We had been married for about 2 years, and we were looking for a parish. We had tried a couple churches, but we kept coming back here to Immaculate. There was just something refreshing, but also very challenging about this call to discipleship, real discipleship. To be a disciple is to be a personal follower of Jesus, and there's really nothing more Christian than that. That is what being a Christian is, right? Is to be a follower of Jesus. As we say here, right? You think like Jesus, talk like Jesus, and act like Jesus. It sounds really simple when you say it like that. It's just a couple of words, right? It's if you drive by, these guys driving by on Smithville are going to see it as they see it on the church sign. Think like Jesus, talk like Jesus, act like Jesus. So like I was sitting over there about 10 years ago, and I decided I'm going to try to do this, right? I'm going to actually do this. I'm going to think like Jesus, talk like Jesus, and act like Jesus in my life. It sounded really simple, and it was not simple at all. So it's really not. So my friends, you know, they understand when you tell them like, okay, Sunday I'm going to go to a church. It's going to take about an hour, or maybe an hour and 15 minutes, or maybe an hour and a half if there's a baptism, right? But they understand. But then when you start telling them that that you can't hang out on a Wednesday because you have a faith sharing group, or maybe you can't hang out on a Saturday because you're planning this retreat that you've been asked to help with, right? Like it gets harder and harder, and the more time I spent at church, the more I was worried about my relationships with my friends, of course, right? Like a lot of our relationships are with more and more people falling away from the church and falling out of faith. It makes it hard to maintain those relationships when you really invest in the church. But after about a year or so of me actually making these commitments and following through, I was blessed to find that my relationships were still strong, and that they accepted that this was a real part of my life. That was not that bad. Work was a lot harder. So 10 years ago, I was working for a defense contractor on military projects, so as many of us in Dayton do. I was okay. I was pretty good at what I was doing, but I wasn't really happy. I wasn't really content. I wasn't really at peace. And the focus of the company was on war and how we could profit from it. And as I was trying to make discipleship a part of my life, part of my personal life, a part of my friendships, a part of my marriage, it became harder and harder for me to go to work every day. I'd go to work and I'd look for that radical love, and I just didn't see it anywhere. So on Sunday I'd come here and I'd pray, and I'd talk to Jesus, and I'd say, this week, you know, I'm going to give this week to you. I'm going to try to do this. I'm going to try to do this. I'm going to try to talk like Jesus and act like Jesus. But then I'd get to work and I'd just put on the same old face, and which really, and the more I prayed about it, the more I realized that the person I was at work really had nothing to do with the person I was at church, and that I needed to make a decision. Now, it wasn't as easy to just, if it were just me, I could have said, well, I'll quit my job, right? But at this point, I had accepted my vocation as a husband and as a father. And the thing that we don't talk about when we talk about Jesus is that Jesus didn't get a paycheck. So I would come and I'd pray for direction. So how do I do this? How do I be a disciple of Christ and still meet my obligations? So I started thinking about like what I have in common with Jesus. So I actually have this in common with Father Satish too. I loved telling stories. And as I thought about it, Jesus was a storyteller, right? The more you read, you realize, gee, if you go through and read that Sermon on the Mount, you realize Jesus loves stories. Told him all the time. So I was really shocked and happy when a friend of mine told me about a position at a high school as an engineering teacher. So it was scary. It was difficult to change careers after I had already started building a life as an engineer, but it put a lot of stress on my wife and my family, but I made the decision and I've been working in education ever since. So on Thursday, my wife told me, you know what, your vocation in life is where your greatest joy meets the world's greatest need. She didn't write that. That was actually a theologian named Fred Buechner, but she found it. It's pretty good. So for me, the call to radical discipleship meant modeling my life after Jesus, the storyteller. It was not an easy journey, but it's been very rewarding, and I'm proud to say that today I'm following in the footsteps of Jesus, the teacher.
So fast forward 10 years from the time of writing that email, we now have 4 kids, ages 7, 5, 3, and 1. And we still looked to our parish as a place that we can call home, but we know that it's not just for the 2 of us. It needs to be home for all 6 of us. I have a lot of friends who feel frustrated that at their parish they feel like their kids aren't welcome. I have never felt that way here at IC. Yes, Mass is a little long for the little guys, but they are told multiple times from the pulpit, we want you here, we want to hear your voices, we want you to be here. I remember the first time we brought our oldest son Owen to Mass. He was about 4 days old. And for those of you who have children, you know what those first days and weeks are like. Everything is hard. Everything makes you nervous. Leaving the house is a big deal. You think you're doing everything wrong. And then the doctors tell you should not take your newborn anywhere for 6 weeks. That's kind of intimidating, especially if it's flu season, which it was. But we decided, you know what, Mass is important. So we packed up 4-day-old Owen, and we came to Mass, nerves and all. I know I didn't hear the reading or the homily because I kept checking on him, like, are you okay? Is everything all right? I'd be looking at him like, is he okay? But I do remember that day we were sitting over there. Enrique and Heidi Acuna were sitting behind us. And at the end of Mass, they stopped us to tell us congratulations. But they also said, you've done the greatest thing today in the world you could ever do for your child. Which I was like, no, I didn't. I brought him in public. And they said, no, you brought your child to see Jesus. And that is still today what I hope I can do for my children. Help them not just to see Jesus, but to follow Jesus. Mother Teresa once said that if you want to change the world, go home and love your family. For me right now, that's how I see my role as a disciple. I'm trying to love my family in radical ways and raise these little disciples who, God willing, will one day grow up to be adult disciples. I don't know about all of you, but I can honestly say that going home and loving your family is hard, especially when we're talking about radical love. No matter what phase of family life you're in, radically loving your family is a challenge because radical love is messy. Radical love involves patience and trust. It involves forgiveness and asking to be forgiven. It means humility and selflessness. It means having hard conversations, being present to the reality of the people that you live with, and making really difficult decisions. Radical love calls you to think of the other before yourself and to dig deep into your relationships. When Eric came to me and said he had been praying about his career and he didn't feel like he could, in good conscience, be an engineer anymore, I was surprised. Then he said, you know what, I think I want to go work at a Catholic high school. And I was like, what? I was shocked, but in a lot of ways, when I really sat down and prayed about it, I wasn't. This move made perfect sense for who he is as a person and for his ability to live discipleship. So even though it caused a lot of financial stress and it didn't make sense to the world, it made sense to us and it made sense in following Christ. So yes, radical love is hard, but it is also so very necessary. One of the greatest gifts I think we've given our children is the gift of community. We belong to not just one, but 2 communities. Every Tuesday we get together with 9 other families, which ends up being 18 adults and 25 kids. It's a lot of people. And we share a meal. The guys go play Frisbee, the girls all talk about what's going on. We kind of help support each other and build this community of motherhood. And the kids, they play, they build community, they take care of one another. They make food for each other. It's a really awesome thing. My kids love these nights. While we're not a formal community, the kids call us the Frisbee Gang. It's become a place where my kids learn how to interact with others and share commonalities. They learn to take care of others and practice love. Then on Wednesday nights, we get together with our other community, our lay Marianist community named Roots. Named this because so many of us were transplants to Dayton who had decided we'd put down new roots here. And that was a support system for a lot of us. Several families from Roots attend this parish. Again, we share a meal together, and then we also share our faith. We use this time to delve deeper into our Marianist charism, to learn more about our Mother Mary, and to find ways to follow that call to do whatever he tells you. I love that this is a place where my children see adults, other than mom and dad, who value their faith and who want to live like Christ. They see that church is not only lived out at Mass on Sundays, but it's lived out in the homes of friends and family throughout Dayton and in the lives of their friends and their friends' families. Through these communities, I hope to model to them that we do not only need to come to Mass to see Jesus, but we can look at the person next to us and see Christ as well. While my life right now often feels small, I don't feel like I can perform big, grandiose acts of radical love. This task, the task of raising these 4 little disciples, also feels very big and in a lot of ways very important. We, Eric and I, have been given the opportunity to teach them to pray, to teach them to think like Jesus, to teach them to talk like Jesus, and to teach them to act like Jesus. And I am so thankful that we don't have to do it alone. Thank you.